In this video, we will show you how to replace your front outer tie rod end on this Ford F-150. This is part of your front steering and suspension, located behind your front wheel. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. Safely raise and support your vehicle. We're going to remove the driver's side front wheel. To do this, you're going to find that you have 6 21mm lug nuts. We can remove those and the wheel from the vehicle. A quick inspection of all hardware as we continue on, replace as necessary. With the wheel out of the way, let's start at the center point in between the outer and the inner tie rod end at the 24mm jam nut. Now for this, you can use a 24mm wrench. I'm just going to use some long pliers here. It gives me a little bit more leverage. Just go ahead and take hold of that. Now for this, we're going to try to turn this clockwise, essentially bringing this jam nut up and away from the outer tie rod end. You can use some penetrant in this area as necessary. There we are. We have a little bit of a gap here. We'll just spray this with some penetrant, let it do its job, and we'll continue on at the far end of the outer tie rod end. If you were to look just underneath the ear of the knuckle here, you're going to find a 21mm mounting nut on the stud of the outer tie rod end. Let's go ahead and remove that nut, a quick inspection, and start it back on just a couple threads. Now we're going to remove the outer tie rod end from the steering knuckle. You can use a tie rod end removal tool, or you could use a rubber mallet along this area of the knuckle, tapping in this area, causing vibration to break this free. Now we can remove that mounting nut. Now to help unscrew the outer tie rod end from the inner tie rod end, I'm just going to hold onto the inner tie rod end with some locking pliers, preventing it from spinning on me while I continue turning the outer tie rod end to remove it. As we remove the outer tie rod end, you want to count the amount of turns it takes to remove it. That was 1, 2, and so on. Make sure you take note of that number, write it down someplace if necessary. I got 23, your results may vary. There it is, friend. Now that we have the outer tie rod end off of there, the next thing we need to do is clean and inspect the threaded portion on the inner tie rod end, confirming it's in good, usable condition. Just going to use a wire brush for this. Just a quick inspection of that. This looks good. Let's apply some copper anti-seize to this portion of the inner tie rod end. Now let's get ready to install our brand new outer tie rod end. To install this, we're going to take hold of our inner tie rod end and the outer tie rod end, and we'll have to turn the outer tie rod end the same amount of turns it took to remove it. Go ahead and get this aligned, start it on. There's 1, 2, and so on. There we are. Now we're just going to take that jam nut and we'll bring it all the way down towards that outer tie rod end. Now you should be able to align your outer tie rod end stud with your steering knuckle. Press that into position, continue on with your mounting nut. As for the mounting nut, you want to go ahead and start it in, snug it up. The torque for this is 76 foot-pounds. Now that we have that torqued, the next thing we need to do is pay attention to the slots on the mounting nut in comparison to the port that goes through the tie rod end. We need to put in a locking cotter pin. If it's not properly aligned, continue tightening until the very next slot is, and then install your locking cotter pin. This is aligned, so I'm going to go ahead and press in my locking cotter pin and peen it over. Just make sure there's no way this can loosen up on us while we're driving down the road. Now let's focus on that jam nut. We'll be using our 24 millimeter to tighten this by turning it counterclockwise while we're looking at it from the outboard side. I'm going to use an 1 1/8" wrench to go around the tie rod end itself, preventing it from turning on me while I continue on. Now let's just go ahead and level out that tie rod end with the ground. You can pivot it as necessary. One last quick inspection in this area and we can reinstall our wheel. Start on all 6 of your 21 millimeter lug nuts. We'll bottom this out. Get the wheel back on the ground and torque each of these to 150 foot-pounds. We've got the wheel back on the ground. We'll be torquing these to 150 foot-pounds in a crisscross manner. Torqued. Okay friend, we finished our installation. The next thing you need to do is take your vehicle for a road test down to your local alignment shop. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.